The young pilots at Edwards Air Force Base started smiling when they saw 5-year-old Tom Maverick Sullivan, an old, slow-moving retired pilot with trembling hands. "What is this old man doing here?" they whispered. Tom listened silently. They didn't know that Tom Sullivan was the first test pilot of the F-22 Raptor and the legendary Ghost Rider who flew secret missions for 30 years. Edwards Air Force Base, in the middle of the California desert, was where the world's most advanced fighter aircraft were tested. That Monday morning, young pilots had gathered in the main hangar for routine briefing. Modern F-35 Lightning and F-22 Raptor pilots, in their state-of-the-art flight suits, saw themselves as the pinnacle of aviation history. Tom Sullivan quietly entered the back of the hangar. The 65-year-old retired pilot stood out with his old brown leather jacket and worn aviator glasses. His hair was silver white, his walk somewhat slow, his hands slightly trembling, the inevitable signs of aging. "Look at this old-timer," whispered Lieutenant Jake Morrison, a 28-year-old F-22 pilot. "He probably flew Mustangs in World War II. His friend Captain Brad Thompson laughed. "The guy probably has trouble finding the bathroom, let alone flying modern aircraft." Tom could hear their conversation but showed no reaction. He looked at the historical aircraft photos hanging on the hangar walls: P-51 Mustang, F-86 Sabre, F-4 Phantom. Pilot names were written next to each aircraft, but Tom's name didn't appear on any of them. The names of classified mission pilots wouldn't appear in public records. When Base Commander Colonel Patricia Hayes began the briefing, Tom stood in the corner. Hayes was explaining to the young pilots the preparations for next week's air show. "Gentlemen," Hayes said, "at the public demonstration, we will showcase the Air Force's cutting-edge capabilities. F-22 Raptor formation flights, precision maneuvers, and advanced combat simulations." "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Morrison confidently, "we're ready. Modern pilots can handle modern aircraft, not like the old generation." Hayes looked at Tom and smiled slightly. "Speaking of generations, I'd like you to meet someone." Tom Sullivan, retired test pilot. The young pilots nodded politely, but were clearly unimpressed. "Sir," said Captain Thompson in a patronizing tone, "maybe you could share some stories from the old days. Vietnam-era aircraft must have been different." Tom finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying authority. "Different, yes. But the principles of flight haven't changed. Physics is physics." "Sure, sir," Morrison grinned. "But modern aircraft require different skills. Computer integration, advanced avionics, multispectrum targeting. Probably overwhelming for someone from the analog era." "Jake," Hayes warned quietly. "It's okay, Colonel," Tom said gently. "Young pilots should have confidence. That's important." As Tom left the hangar, the young pilots laughed behind him. "Poor old guy," Hawk whispered. "He probably misses when flying was simple." But Colonel Hayes caught Tom in the corridor. "Tom, I'm sorry about that. These kids don't know." "They don't need to know," Tom interrupted. "But maybe it's time for a reminder about respect." Hayes nodded. "The Pentagon called this morning. Your clearance has been reactivated. Hangar 7 is prepared." Tom smiled for the first time. "Thank you, Patricia. Time to show these young eagles what an old hawk can do." That afternoon, Tom walked to Hangar 7. Inside, covered by a tarp, sat something that would change everything. 40 years ago, Tom "Ghost Rider" Sullivan was part of one of aviation history's most secret programs. In 1983, at only 25 years old, he had been selected as the first test pilot of the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. No one was aware of his existence, classified program, classified missions, classified identity. When F-22 Raptor development began in the early 1990s, Tom had become the program's chief test pilot. The pilot who flew the first prototype. The pilot who tested air-to-air combat capabilities. The pilot who discovered impossible maneuvers. All Tom. The Ghost Rider call sign came from his extraordinary ability. Invisible on radar, the ability to approach enemy aircraft and disappear. In the Persian Gulf War in Bosnia, on classified missions, Tom eliminated enemy targets without ever being seen. In 1995, he had conducted the most critical test of the F-22, experimental flight envelope pushing, testing the aircraft's structural limits. At Mach 2.5 at 0 feet, he had experienced engine failure. Another pilot would have crashed. But Tom brought the aircraft to Edwards with a dead stick landing. That flight data had shaped the F-22's final design. Tom's achievements in Pentagon files were impressive. 4. 200 total flight hours. 1. 800 F-22 hours. Record. 47 classified missions. 0 combat losses. 12 aircraft saved from critical failures. But the public knew nothing. Tom's biography was officially classified. He had no article in Air Force magazines, no feature in Aviation Week. The Ghostwriter legend was only whispered in classified briefing rooms. In 2003, Tom had taken voluntary retirement. His wife Linda had died of cancer. His daughter lived in California. Tom had begun living a quiet life in Nevada. Small ranch, civilian aircraft, peaceful days. But the aviation community hadn't forgotten Tom. Lockheed Martin engineers still sought his feedback. Boeing test pilots studied his techniques. Top Gun Academy instructors taught his tactics. In Pentagon files, there was a special note for Tom. In case of national emergency or critical aviation requirements, Ghostwriter clearance can be reactivated within 24 hours. This morning, Colonel Hayes had made that call. Tom lifted the tarp in Hangar 7. Underneath, in pristine condition, stood an F-22A Raptor. Tail number 91 4003. Tom's old aircraft, specially maintained. On the side of the aircraft was a small inscription, Ghostwriter, when you need a legend. Tom climbed into the cockpit. Every switch, every button, every display was familiar. Muscle memory instantly activated. This wasn't just an aircraft. This was his extension. Ground Crew Chief Technical Sergeant Maria Rodriguez approached. "Sir, the aircraft is fully fueled. Systems checked. Clearance confirmed. Colonel Hayes is waiting in the tower." "Thank you, Sergeant," Tom said, putting on his helmet. Time to remind some young pilots that legends never truly retire. The F-22's engines spun up, the characteristic whine filling the hangar. Tom felt the familiar acceleration as the aircraft moved toward the runway. In the tower, Colonel Hayes took the radio. "Ghostwriter, this is Edwards Tower. You are cleared for unrestricted flight operations. Show them what real flying looks like." Tom smiled. "Copy, Edwards. Ghostwriter is back." The young pilots were drinking coffee in the hangar briefing room when they heard the F-22's takeoff sound. They looked out the window but couldn't see the aircraft. Too fast, too high, too gone. Tom was at 30 feet, afterburners full, heading for the demonstration zone. Showtime. Alarm sounds began ringing in the base operations center. Radar operator Staff Sergeant Williams stared at his screen in amazement. "Sir," he called to the duty officer in the control tower. "Unknown aircraft in Edwards airspace. Transponder off. No identification." Lieutenant Morrison and Captain Thompson ran to operations when they heard the alarm. This was their area of responsibility. "What's the situation?" Morrison demanded. "Unidentified aircraft, sir. Extremely fast. Erratic flight pattern, it looks like." Williams stopped. "Sir, this is impossible." The aircraft signature on the radar screen was identical to an F-22 Raptor, but the movement patterns were unlike anything they had ever seen. The aircraft seemed to ignore the laws of physics. "Get visual confirmation," Thompson ordered. "Alert the squadron." Just then, the radio crackled, "Edwards Tower, Ghostwriter, requesting permission for demonstration flight." Everyone in the tower froze. The Ghostwriter call sign was legendary but hadn't been heard for decades. Colonel Hayes climbed to the tower. "Ghostwriter, Edwards Tower. Permission granted. The airspace is yours." Morrison and Thompson looked confused. "Ma'am, who is Ghostwriter?" Hayes smiled mysteriously. "Your education is about to begin." Outside, base personnel had emerged from the hangars. There was a barely visible dot in the sky, but the sound was unmistakable. F-22 Raptor, full afterburner. Tom was warming up the aircraft at 40 feet. Even after 30 years, the F-22 was responsive in his hands. Every control input, perfect response. This was a marriage of man and machine. The first maneuver was simple, vertical climb, 90-degree angle, Mach 1.8. A sonic boom came from the ground. The young pilots found it impressive, but it was a routine military maneuver. The second maneuver was jaw-dropping. Tom brought the aircraft to inverted position, then put it into a flat spin, controlled spin, attitude maintained. The aircraft seemed to hover like a helicopter, but at 25 feet. "That's impossible," Morrison whispered. "The F-22 can't do that." Hayes took the radio. "Ghostwriter, impressive as always. Tom's voice came back calm. Haven't started yet, Patricia. The third maneuver would go down in aviation history. Tom brought the aircraft to knife-edge position, wings vertical, aircraft flying from its side. Normal pilots could hold this for seconds. Tom maintained it in perfect line for 2 minutes. Then came the signature move. Tom put the aircraft into a cobra maneuver. Nose up 90 degrees, speed bleeding off, aircraft virtually standing on its tail. But a normal cobra lasted 3-4 seconds. Tom held the aircraft vertical for 15 seconds, then made an elegant recovery. "Impossible," Thompson said, holding his breath. "Nobody can do that." Hayes took the radio again. "Ghost Rider, it's time to reveal your identity." Tom's voice came clear. "Edwards personnel. I'm Tom Sullivan. Call sign Ghost Rider. First test pilot of the F-22 Raptor and 30-year classified operations veteran." Complete silence fell over the hangar. Morrison's phone came out, frantically doing a Google search. Limited results came but enough. Tom Sullivan. Classified test pilot. F-22 development program. Ghost Rider legend. "Oh my God," Thompson whispered. "He's real. The legend is real." Tom continued on the radio. "Young pilots, modern technology is wonderful, but pilot skills are timeless. Respect your aircraft. Respect your training. Respect your elders." For the final maneuver, Tom made an impossible climb, vertical acceleration to Mach 2, to 50 feet in seconds. Then he disappeared into the blue sky. No one spoke until landing. When Tom parked the aircraft on the runway, all Edwards Air Base personnel had gathered around the hangar. He removed his pilot helmet and climbed down from the cockpit. The 65-year-old man now looked different. Confident, authoritative, legendary. Morrison and Thompson stood at the front of the group, their faces a mixture of shame and amazement. "Sir," Morrison stammered, "we didn't know." Tom smiled gently. "You didn't need to know. But there's something you need to learn. Respect." Colonel Hayes took the microphone. "Personnel, meet Tom Ghost Rider Sullivan, chief test pilot of the F-22 Raptor. 47 classified missions. 200 flight hours." The crowd erupted in applause. This was a legend, not a myth. Tom raised his hand for silence. "Young pilots, you are exceptional. Modern training is excellent, technology incredible. But wisdom comes with experience." "Sir," Thompson stepped forward, "what we said earlier. Unforgivable." "Forgiven," Tom said simply. "But learn from this. Every pilot, young, old, experienced, rookie, has something to teach. Arrogance blinds you to lessons." Morrison asked, "Sir, how did you do those maneuvers? Even the F-22's specifications?" Tom smiled mysteriously. "Aircraft specs are official limits, but a pilot who can push boundaries safely expands aircraft capabilities. I spent decades learning the F-22's true potential." "Would you train us?" Thompson asked hopefully. Hayes stepped forward. "Actually, that's why Tom's clearance was reactivated. The Pentagon wants him to start an advanced fighter tactics program. Elite pilot training." Tom nodded. "Interested pilots can apply. But warning, my program is tough. Discipline, respect, precision required." All the young pilots immediately raised their hands. "Sir," Morrison said, "earlier today we disrespected you terribly. If you'll have us, we want to learn." Tom looked at each eager face. These were good pilots, just arrogant. Education could fix arrogance. "Program starts Monday. 500 hours. Hangar 7. Bring your best effort and leave your ego behind." The group dispersed excitedly, buzzing about the opportunity. Tom started walking toward the hangar exit. Hayes caught up. "Tom, that was incredible. How did you maintain those maneuvers for so long?" Tom paused, distant memory in his eyes. "Patricia, when you've flown classified missions over hostile territory, when every maneuver means life or death, you learn the aircraft's true soul. The F-22 isn't just a machine, it's a partner. The young pilots worship you now. Good. Fear breeds respect. Respect breeds learning. But worship is dangerous. I'm a teacher, not a god." That evening, Tom sat on his hotel balcony, looking at the Edwards runway lights. After 30 years of retirement, he was back where he belonged, not just flying, but teaching the next generation. His phone was buzzing with messages. "Pentagon, congratulations. Lockheed Martin interview requests. Aviation Week cover story, offers. But the most meaningful message was a simple text from Morrison. Sir, thank you for the second chance. See you Monday, 500. Tom smiled, typed back. Earn it. The next morning, the base newspaper headline read, Ghost Rider returns. Legend takes command of elite training program. The article included a photo, Tom standing beside the F-22 confident pose, decades of experience evident. Caption, Some legends retire. Others just rest their wings. Tom's new mission was beginning, teaching respect, discipline, excellence to a new generation. Ghost Rider was back, this time as a mentor. 3 months later, Edwards Air Force Base had completely changed. Tom's Advanced Fighter Tactics program had become legendary in the aviation world. Elite pilots from around the world were coming for training. Morrison and Thompson were the program's first graduates. Their arrogance had transformed into discipline and respect. Now they too were teaching Tom's lessons to junior pilots. Remember, Morrison said to a young pilot during briefing, aircraft specs are just the starting point. Real limits depend on the pilot's skill and connection with the aircraft. Tom's daily routine was strict: 500 physical training, 600 technical briefing, 700 1,000, 200 flight training, 1,000, 300 1,000, 700 tactical analysis. Students were exhausted, but the results were incredible. The program's reputation had reached the Pentagon. The Joint Chiefs of Staff had visited Tom. Your program is producing the best pilots we've seen in decades, General Martinez had said. But Tom's greatest satisfaction came from individual transformations. Morrison, once arrogant and dismissive, was now a respectful leader. Thompson had gained confidence, but maintained humility. Sir, Thompson said to Tom one evening, the program didn't just make me a better pilot, it made me a better person. Tom nodded approvingly. That was the point. Flying technique is easy to teach. Character is harder. On the 1-year anniversary of the program, the base organized a major ceremony. The Air Force Secretary was giving Tom special recognition. Media was present, cameras rolling. Tom Sullivan, the Secretary announced, has revolutionized modern pilot training. His wisdom, experience, and dedication represent extraordinary service to the country. Tom accepted the award modestly. The real credit belongs to the students. I just reminded them, pilot greatness comes from character, not technology. After the ceremony, Tom stood alone in Hangar 7. The F-22 Raptor shone in the afternoon light. His partner, his extension, his legacy. Morrison approached. Sir, retiring again? Tom smiled. No, this is home now. Teaching the next generation is my final mission. Students everywhere are studying your methods. The program is expanding to other bases. Good. Respect and discipline are universal principles. Every pilot can benefit. In the evening, Tom drove to his Nevada ranch. Peaceful, quiet, but no longer lonely. There was purpose in his life again. A phone call came from his daughter in California. Dad, I saw the ceremony on the news. So proud of you. Thanks, honey. Finally found my place again. The next morning, Tom returned to Edwards early. 500 training session with a new group of students. The cycle continued. A new photo now hung on the hangar wall. Tom standing with the first graduating class. Caption: Ghost Rider legacy. Excellence through respect. Young pilots constantly arrived, eager to learn from the legend. Tom welcomed each group with the same message: humility, discipline, respect. These make a great pilot. Years passed. Tom aged but never stopped teaching. Students became instructors. Instructors became commanders. The Ghost Rider philosophy spread throughout the Air Force. Tom's final flight came on his 75th birthday. One last solo mission in the F-22. Smooth takeoff, perfect maneuvers, graceful landing. The crowd watched silently, witnessing the end of an era. Taxiing to the hangar, Tom felt Linda's presence, felt peace. Mission completed, legacy secured. Stepping out of the cockpit for the final time, Tom looked at the gathered pilots, former students, new arrivals, future leaders. Flying, he told them, is the greatest privilege humans have. Treat it with the respect it deserves. The hangar erupted in applause. Ghost Rider had landed. Permanently. The end.